and then your organization will be moving some milestone.
Just think about it. The longer name, could you slap?
Yeah, all right. Okay, he said it. I'm thank you for thinking of it. Thank you, sir. Glasses. Ready? We want to welcome you back for our last panelist today. But again, allow me to thank those of you who have participated with us here presently here in the building with us, and those who are watching our live stream. I want to again give thanks and appreciation to our city commission and also our city mayor for their immense support today to make this event a great success. And so we want to say thank you to our city leaders, our governing leaders here in the city. I also want to give thanks and appreciation to Pastor Patrick Harding, and also Mount Zion for their lovely support. Can you give them a hand today and clap for them? I want to thank you for sharing this vision today with us, and more importantly, not only sharing the vision, but participating with it. And so we want to extend our heartfelt appreciation for what you guys have done to make this day possible. Our last panel today, or panelists today, are two persons that I have grown to know and to love. The first is one of my classmates for many years, local resident. So when we talk about family and community, I think she's well informed and engaged in that understanding. But she now lives not in Brewster County, but she is still serving in many counties. And so I want to welcome today to the African American Family Institute Community Symposium, Dr. Nicole Bradwell of CFI. Weight loss, can we give our panelists a hand, and also my colleague and friend from Halifax Health Hospice. He is the Community Relations Manager. His name is Mr. John Mark Creighton. He and I have worked together now, probably I've been there for over a year, I'm sure. We have had personal dialogue in reference to how we serve families, and more importantly, how we help families as it relates to end of life and aging. And I want to say this as I turn this over to them. For those of you that know me, I am also a hospice chaplain. So doing that work as a hospice chaplain, I ask myself, how are we dying? Because I see many cultures from around the world that we have opportunity to support and to help them grieve and to help process grief. But what I noticed was that our communities had not yet gotten that welcoming idea about what hospice really is. And so today, I'm hoping that John can talk a little bit about that along with Dr. Burnell with their health and wellness. So their panel today, we're talking about health and wellness. And so again, without further ado, would you please govern your attention to our panelists at this time?
So, hi everyone, good afternoon. So I'm always super excited to talk about health because I think, I'm very much about wellness and prevention. And even if the train left the station already, how can we slow the train down so that we decrease complications that then take away from quality of life? So I predominantly do weight management now, but I was actually trained as a pediatrician. I've been a doctor for 28 years. It's hard to believe, and I've been doing weight management full time now for 8 years. And so that switch allowed me to kind of hone in on a person and their family and be able to help them get to a healthier place. So it's more than just weight loss. And what I wanted to make a comment about when we were talking about COVID, what I think kind of falls to the background is that there are lots of other things going along, happening to people in their health other than COVID. So other health problems are happening, and I'll just share with you, I remember the day that my mom had a massive heart attack. And she had been with me for almost a year and a half during COVID and was completely fine. And got sick one day, and I actually had to do CPR on her. Now, she was able to survive. We brought her back. She spent 6 weeks in the hospital, ICU, intubated, all kinds of things. She made it back. But her heart was too weak, and after 4 months, she actually ended up dying because her heart was too weak to keep up with the therapy that she needed in order to start walking again. She didn't walk after that. But she was very much aware and what have you. And so she had diabetes, she had hypertension, but she was a great patient. She had never been admitted for any one of those conditions, even when she was diagnosed. And so she followed diet and what have you. So she died at 82. So she was 82 years old, and she had had those conditions. She had had hypertension as long as I can remember, and I'm 56 years old. So, you know, she took care of herself, and she was very mindful of that, and she was still diagnosed. And she did happen to be a nurse, but not all nurses are healthy. And then sometime later, she was diagnosed with diabetes. She was overweight at one time, but again, she took that, you know, her responsibility for that, and did exercise and lost weight, and then as she got older, she was able to maintain a healthier weight. And so I believe that took her to age 82. So, you know, in our community, I find that people don't want to go to the doctor. And when I say our community, it's our Black community and it's our Christian community, which really upsets me. Because I definitely believe that me being a doctor is my calling. It was part of my calling. I think that I found more of my calling through being a doctor. And I believe that God, this is part of my ministry, and definitely stepping into the weight management portion, that is definitely my ministry, because what I have done with people that have been in front of me is actually get down to the core of why they make the choices that they make. And so that happens from whatever our culture is, it happens from whatever our tradition is, it happens from whatever environment, and definitely environment can override everything. Genetics even. So good and bad environment. So we say it's genetic, but that doesn't mean that we can't do anything about it. So we need to change our environment, and by environment I mean change how you eat, change where you eat, change what you eat, change who you eat with. Because there are some of us that because of who we're around, we continue to eat the way that we shouldn't. And if we pick somebody else, then we'll actually be better. Okay? I'm not telling you to get rid of your spouse. I'm like, don't get rid of your wife or your husband. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that we have a choice in that. And I think that it's really, really important in our community to know that we can do something about it and that we can make better choices. And even if we are in a situation where we definitely suffer with food deserts, that's a huge problem, where there is no supermarket, no proper supermarket. There's a high-priced market, probably on the corner somewhere, where they buy food. But I can tell you that I've had actually people that have very little money, and I have seen people for free because I would not allow cost and money to be a reason why somebody that needed to get their health under control would be a reason why I didn't help them. Now, that means that I haven't gotten rich yet, but I'm working on that in a different way. But that you can do it at the Dollar Tree. That lady bought food at the Dollar Tree, and she made changes in her diet, and she lost like 50 pounds. And she felt great. She was energized, she was healthy, so it can be done, but I think that the link that Dr. Jacobs is trying to make is that we have to be able to talk to those people. I have to be in the community to be able to reach out to that person or to that family. And we can't change children if we don't change the adults. So, you know, the kids don't have the money to buy food. So when I have a pediatrician, when I had moms telling me, well, you don't do whatever, you just eat. And I'm like, well, what did you buy at the grocery store? Like, who's picking the food at the grocery store? And that's really where it starts. It actually starts with the grocery list. But some of that stuff is already on the list. The cookies are listed, we gotta get chips, the soda, we gotta get, you see the carts go out with the 2 cases of Pepsi or Coke or whatever. And so all of that is, that's our environment. And so I think that we have to make that normal. I like it that Dr. Jacobs actually got us veggie pizza for lunch. However, we're not going to talk about the other things because I actually had some of that and I don't want to talk about it. Forget about it. But we can, if we're not doing that all the time, then yeah, when we go to a function, we can have some pizza. We can have a donut. And it's the only kind of donut that I eat too. And the only place that I will eat donuts from that he had in there. But anyway, so if you're not doing that all the time, you're making better choices over time, most of the days, and that's where the word weight management comes in, because it's actually not just about losing weight. I actually have clients that I help gain proper weight, but they actually have health problems that make that difficult and they need help. So I have diabetics that can't gain proper weight. And so gaining weight is not just about going out and just eating whatever, adding butter to stuff and adding peanut butter and all that kind of stuff. You have to be careful about what we do, otherwise the diabetes is going to be out of control. And so weight management means that when you go to make a food choice, you're going to make a choice. Even if I choose to eat the donut, I made that choice so that when I make the next choice later on in the day, I'm probably not going to pick a donut because I said I already had two. But anyway, I actually had two. But we're going to make a better choice. And so I think that we need to have those conversations need to be more normal, and they need to be where we spend a lot of time, which is in church. And so that's why my church actually started to change, because they blessed me and gave me an office in there when I started my practice. So a year in, so that I wouldn't have to pay high leasing, and they liked having me around so they could ask a couple of questions every day. But they gave me an office, and so my presence there made a difference. Now, I didn't, like I was talking about it there, where we would have like a function and have pizza, and people are like over in the corner, and they can't see me eating, I can't see them eating the pizza, or they'll rat me out and say, Dr. Nicole's eating pizza. That's not what it's about. I'm not there to police anybody. We have to make our own choices, we form our own patterns, and we form our own habits. And once something becomes a habit, you're actually not thinking about it anymore, it becomes automatic. So what kind of automatic habit are we going to put in place? And so that's why we have to have the discussion every year where we share time together. So they started putting veggie plates. Yeah, they still have pizza sometimes or whatever, but they have veggies, they have fruit, so that people had a choice. And you see people at first combining things. So they got a cookie, and then they have some watermelon, and then they have some celery. But you do see a shift, especially since sometimes the healthier food is easier to carry. So the kid can carry the celery, somebody can pick up a couple of carrots and put it in dressing. And so you can actually gradually change habits. It's almost like diluting juice. And let me make a disclaimer that no one on the planet needs to drink juice, okay? Baby, kid, me, you, nobody needs juice. You take away the benefit of the fiber that's in the fruit by just only drinking the juice. So go ahead and eat the fruit, leave the juice alone. All right? Because otherwise, when you drink the juice, you're just drinking the most sugar content part of the fruit. And natural sugar still can overwhelm your body because your body still identifies it excuse me, as sugar, and it still does other things. So, I would just say we need to make health a conversation that we have on a regular basis. Part of that has to do with the social media, like Pastor Harding was talking about. Rather than sitting at the table and watching TV, which only sends you messages to keep eating And not to eat the good stuff, because it's McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Taco Bell, all of those things are on TV when you're doing that, and have conversations. So then people are eating slower at the table. They get full, and they recognize when they get full, and then they're not going to eat as much or run back to go get the seconds. Because if you don't think of it and you just keep eating really, really fast, and you think that you want some more because it tastes so good, and you go back and get more, and that's how come we get that awful feeling of feeling so full, because we didn't allow enough communication between our brain and our stomach. So, I created my practice that I could talk to families longer. So the lady that I talked to for 3 hours on her first visit, and we finally got down, and she cried and brought out things from her past that she was suppressing, things that were hurting her, things that kept her making choices to medicate herself with food. Now, we can use food as medicine, but we shouldn't be medicating ourselves with food, and those two things are different. And so just being able to do that, but we have to make the conversation normal. The other conversation we need to make normal is dying, and how our folks are dying, like Pastor Jacobs was talking about. And so I was fortunate enough, yes, I know enough from being in the medical community to ask about hospice, so that my mom had a peaceful passing. And she passed at home. She passed with dignity. She passed with me and my sister by her side. And all of that was possible because of hospice. And so I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Creighton so that he can actually shed some more light on that, because I know there's a lot of stigma attached to those things, hospice and what have you. People really don't know what hospice does sometimes. So.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Before I start, I wanted to say that blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Now, I've gone back and I've reread that several times, and it does not say, blessed are the Democrats or blessed are the Republicans. It clearly says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. So Dr. Nicole just said she experienced a very peaceful passing of her life. Difficult if there's a void. So hospice, the best way I like to think of hospice is a calling. God gave us a calling to be there to provide peace, calmness, and comfort. Many, many, many years ago, hospice got the name because of travelers were going all over the world, and they needed a place to rest. So hospice was started by a nurse who is a social worker who became a doctor. And it all started because the travelers, they were tired, they were weary. And so hospice, think of hospice as comfort. And I'd like to talk about a very important word, irreversible. You can think about one thing. When the doctor walks into the room and says to you as a family member, I am so sorry, but your loved one has an irreversible diagnosis. That's difficult. That's telling us as humans, there's no cure, there's no medication, there's nothing that can change that irreversible condition. It may be 6 months, it may be 8 months, it may be 2 weeks. So I want you to write that word down, irreversible. And when that's kind of when the process needs to start. Hospice is not giving up. Hospice is not giving up. Remember, our job as a chaplain, as a nurse, and as a social worker is to provide peace and comfort. That's all hospice is doing. There are so many individuals that have been told I have an irreversible condition They go home and they have that anger, they're bitter, they're mad, they're frustrated. And then they come to the realization, all right, John, I don't want to go back and forth to the hospital anymore. I'm tired. I don't want to get in the car. That makes me, it makes me not feel good when I have to, that requires too much energy. So there's three things that I like about hospice, and it's called the 3 Ps. Physical pain is number one. If I had a headache right now, we all had a headache, we talked to Dr. Nicole, said, Dr. Nicole, can I have an aspirin or a Tylenol or something? And the nurse would provide, or the doctor who takes care of our physical pain, right? And within maybe 15, 20 minutes, our pain would go away. So that's physical pain. The second pain is emotional pain. What about if you haven't seen your daughter in 2 years? And the doctor says, you've got an irreversible condition. And now that you haven't seen your daughter in 2 years, we can take care of the physical pain with aspirin. But who's there to take care of that emotional pain? Stop and think about that. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is that pain level? Could be a 12 or 15, right? And then there's a spiritual pain. There are so many people that I deal with, we get on hospice, a comfort, we get it, and they say, oh no, I don't need a chapel. I want nothing to do with the chapel. And then about 3 weeks later, they call me and say, you know what, John, I think I'm ready for that chapel. Spiritual pain, believe it or not, there are many, many people who, like, they were out drinking when they were 16 years old, and they were in a car accident, and the girl in the back seat was killed. They have all this guilt of they're going to hell. And so we deal with the physical pain, we deal with emotional pain, and most importantly, we deal with the spiritual pain. I could talk for the next 3 hours, but I know you don't want me to talk about 3 hours. So, any questions or thoughts? Hospice is a free benefit. There's no cost to hospice. Everybody in Washington, D.C. has a bucket of money. We pay taxes all of our life. So we pay. You can hear me?
Okay, that's good. Dr. Nicole, good job. So everybody in Washington, D.C., everyone in this room, we pay taxes. So there's a bucket of money up there with our name on it. And that pays for all of our hospice care. It pays for chaplains to go into the home. It pays for a nurse. It pays for a certified nursing assistant to help with bathing. So Medicare pays for hospice, and it's a free benefit. You sign up today that you want hospice, and then 3 days from now you say, no, I want to try this aggressive treatment. You can get off of hospice. So it's a beautiful thing. And we don't speed death up. We don't give people a bunch of drugs and speed up the process. So hospice is, we're there to provide comfort, calmness, and most importantly, we deal with the 3 Ps. So yes, sir.
Yeah, I want to make a statement about because this is a particular one. Back in 2005, my first wife was diagnosed with leukemia. Okay, it was a big financial. Fortunately, I was pastoring church at the big Saturday and at the church home on the street because the person who was there was 24 hours tonight, she was on the bench. In fact, she would have had had she not been at the hospital when she went on the bench because she had not been diagnosed. But when she went on the bench, that was somebody always got to be some person on the bench. We, when she got sick, we had a special program for suspended kids. She was for education. And we had this program for kids who suspended from school. a board of directors. On the board of directors, fortunately, I had a wealthy people. You know, this is in Vero Beach, a big wealthy community that was before. And one of the guys on there was very wealthy. His sister had cancer. And he said, Henry, why don't you put her on hospice? He said, a lot of stuff you can get free, you know. And he said, well, my sister back in Michigan is on hospice, you know. And the thing is, he said, she still goes to work. People don't understand, once they hear that irreversible condition, the doctor can write that they have a terminal illness, they qualify for hospice. Most times, we don't call hospice for the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks. 2 weeks. Yeah. Because we think a hospice will kill them. Right. That's the thing. So that's the mindset I had back then, so I didn't take it as a fact. This guy is a millionaire. They're taking advantage of that free stuff. Trust me. Well, even more than a millionaire, because he retired at 45 and sold the business. But because of the taboo, when I come up here, here in 2011, moved back here, my wife died in 2009, moved back here, remarried, been more in my family life up here now. My mother gets terminal illness, COPD. So my daughter, who works for hospice, she started working for hospice, we worked for hospice 2 years, a social worker. And my mom had scar tissue from a surgery back in the 80s that was giving her excruciating pain. And at this time, this was when they were very particular about diagnosing pain medicine. And so I get to the pain doctor, and the pain doctor said, well, I don't, you know, she just wants to pain medicine, you know, because she puts on pain medicine. I said, my mom on pain medicine, she reads everything she takes before she takes it. She is in pain, and nothing will stop her pain. My daughter said, she lives in Portland, she said, Dad, why don't you all put a train on hospice? So naturally, red flag to us. She said, no, they can be on hospice. We got people on hospice still working. We got people on hospice get off of hospice because they get better, and then they can get back on hospice. She said they would give her that first key. See, they would give her what she needed to be basic pain. So I didn't have power of attorney, so I had to let her talk to my sister. So she finally talked to my sister, and my sister, and she convinced my sister that, look, I work at hospice. And you'd be surprised at the people that are on hospice for months. That's not for years. And they get all those benefits. Nurse come in and see about them, all that free benefits, you know. So my sister was doing this. My mother was on hospice for a year before she paid. My mother was going fishing on hospice, on the fish street, on hospice, at church, camping on hospice, taking advantage of all the benefits.
Our quality of life improved because they were able to get on hospice.
But a lot of that because of that mindset, again, the power of mindset, and what people talk that they don't know. That's what happened with the vaccine. 12th grade person who flunked biology, telling people why they shouldn't take the vaccine. When they got doctors who did the doctors 12 years, you know what I mean? They listen to that person. Yeah. You know, that's what happened with hospitals. We listen to what we hear among our culture. Oh, this hospital gonna kill them. The only thing, now here's the one drawback I learned this. The one drawback of hospice is that you have to do a DNR. Do not research. So if you have a health disorder, they can't. And that was the hardest thing was to get back to science. But the fact of the matter is, it benefited my mother. It would hopefully benefit my wife. My wife never would have done it because she was confident. She was a woman of faith to the very end. I think the other person was a woman of faith to the very end.
It's highly encouraged to sign a do not resuscitate order, but it's not mandated.
The DO hospital as well.
Well, in our,
When detox came, they said,
Okay.
if you decided DNR, they couldn't put on hospital. I hope
that's the way that it be, but it's at your choice, you're the boss. If you don't want to sign a DNR, now we're going to try to encourage you, we're going to try to get the physician involved, you know, because once we start, we've got to do the whole process. So, but our hospice, it's not mandatory that you have a DNR.
You can still do on hospital.
You can still do it.
That's kind of hospital. Because I know somebody right now. Okay, good.
And another thing we're moving towards is called palliative care, which I'm really glad they've done it up north for years, But now in the community, let's say that someone is taking chemo and they can't be on hospice and do aggressive treatment. That's just the way the rules, them's the rules, you know? Now the government is saying, well, wait a minute, just because that lady's on a low dose of chemo, that should prevent her from having the same benefits. So now we're gonna start hearing a word called palliative care, community palliative care, which is going to help. You can still be on dialysis. Some people, once you get off of dialysis, you have to stop dialysis to get on hospice. Well, now because of palliative, they can continue to go get that dialysis and still enjoy the benefits of hospice. So people are starting to change their tune.
John, I wanted to comment in reference to the DNR. This, so they can hear us. I wanted to comment on the DNR because that is a valid question about DNRs. We do see, even in our work that we do, that DNR can be an issue. What I would like to do is explain that purpose of that DNR. So you said we would get you to sign a DNR, so we don't want to sign one. We want everything done for my mom or dad, my wife, whatever, when the issue comes. But what we want to suggest to you is that, are you ready to handle the outcome of what a DNR means? If your mom, your dad, your wife gets into a critical condition and the ambulance or somebody shows up and they have to do a full resuscitation, do you know what that means? When I was in hospice training, as chaplains, we go through what we call an interdisciplinary teams. When we had to go through this, code blue, we go into the room and the person codes, and I saw my first resuscitation. And I promise you, unless that person can benefit from that resuscitation, or they're young enough for that resuscitation, that was one of the most traumatic experiences for me. And I want to add this, my family member was resuscitated. And I tell my wife to come out of the room because the resuscitation was just that traumatic. I said, I'm so grateful that you didn't see it. And you have to, and that's why the DNRs are necessary. Does it bring the quality of life back to the patient? Does the patient benefit from it? In other words, we go and resuscitate them, but it harmed them more than the resuscitation and the recovery. So those are the processing that we have to do. And that's what our job is. My job is for sure. It's helping the process. You might think you want that DNR, no DNR. But if you go through a traumatic experience, is that worse to see a person pass while you were trying to recover them, or did they pass naturally? We call that term, I used the term earlier, a good death. I didn't know what that meant. They said we ought to provide, and especially like in my culture experience, is that we don't have good deaths. Sometimes we die traumatically. We die in ways that are not memorable. And when we, like she said, you gave a great example. Kennedy, my sister, and I were by my mother's bedside. We were there the whole night. This is what happened. They were not trying to heal their mother. They were not in the space they could be a daughter because hospice was doing the P's. The hospice was doing the P's, and she was being the daughter. And I had a family this week. I said, I saw this mother and daughter, and they were caregivers running through the house. John trying to do this for her husband and her dad. They run through the house, and they said, we can't handle this. Kennedy, it's too much. It's too much. It's too much. They put the person in one of our facilities. I went to visit the person in the facility, and I saw the wife being the wife. And I saw the daughter being the daughter. I said, now, what does that feel like now? You should have seen him, John. He was like Kennedy. We should have done this in the beginning. But they were trying to be caregivers, but they did not have the capacity to care for their loved one. When they could have been the wife, it could have been the lady, the wife was by the bed holding his hand. He was so confident and peaceful. The daughter was standing and watching mom, make sure mom was okay. So that's our role. Hospice helps us to feel that good space. And it can be a good death, a good experience, because you cannot carry it. You cannot provide care only to the ability that you can provide. So that's what hospice for me is helping me to feel good about. Because we help people be themselves and be present with their loved ones while we do that. Those three P's of help.
So my personal experience with hospice, you know, the compassion, that whole emotional component, not only for the patient, but for the family. Because I had been my mother's primary caregiver for a year, and then my sister and I, as she was more severe now, I mean, she was fine otherwise, just fixing her breakfast, and then all of a sudden, here it is, we had to help her do everything. And it gave us time, so she wasn't DNR before that, because she was doing fine. She was getting older, and she had some problems, but she was okay. And so we didn't make her DNR until, we didn't put her on hospice, until we found out that she had an irreversible liver failure. So her organs were starting to fail. And that was the most kind, compassionate, loving thing that we could have done for my mom. Because like I said, we didn't keep her in the hospital. She came home. That's what she always told us. We knew from when we were very young. She kept the thing for cremation. We knew exactly what she wanted our whole lives. And so that was a no-brainer for us when it was time for that. And it did help us. And even though the hospice nurse could leave when my mom did pass, the hospice nurse actually stayed until my mom was taken away. And what happened? He stayed. And he said, this is just what I choose to do that. So you have very compassionate people that are doing this work. They believe in what they're doing, and they're very helpful. And I think that we need to know that. We need to communicate that. And my other hospice story is that one of my first clients, when I started my weight management, was an 80-year-old lady, one of the mothers of the church. And she swore I was going to be her doctor. Well, when I first met her, I was still a pediatrician. And I said, I can't be your doctor. And then she must have spoken into existence. She did enough praying. She was a prayer warrior, so she spoke it into existence. And sure enough, I ended up being her doctor. She was on hospice. She was on hospice for 7 years. 7 years. And she gave me some kudos on that, because she said losing the weight probably actually helped her, because she was more comfortable. She had better quality of life. It's thrown around, but it means like so much. And again, it affects the whole family, not just the patient. And so I think this is another normal conversation that we need to have. You know, it's kind of like as a pediatrician, when I was talking to kids about their exam and go to examine their genitalia and stuff, and in our community, again, oh, what are you doing down there? You know what? Well, just like I listen to your heart, and just like I listen to your lungs, this is part of your body, and I need to check, your genitalia for you to make sure everything looks as it's supposed to look, right? So this is part of your exam. Your mom or your dad is there to make sure that I do this correctly, and that nothing, and I'm your doctor, so that kind of conversation. And I think we need to have that conversation about hospice and plan for those things, because that's something else we don't do. No will, no, all those things that are related. I made sure my mom did that. When she was well, we went and took care of it. We went and took care of the living trust. So even though we still have to go through probate, guess what? Everything was in line, so we've still been able to be about her business and still take care of her house, because we had the will. So we still have proof that yes, we are the legal owners of this. And yeah, we'll go through that other part in a minute, but because that can take a while, but we still need to take care of the house and everything else. And so we've been able to do that. So I think that all these types of conversations that we've shied away from, that's what we should be talking about at dinner time. And it should be normal. It should be normal, so we're not scared about it. So we come into church and we say, oh yeah, when it's my time, I'm ready, I'm prepared, I know where I'm going. But then we don't want to talk about it when we're at home, right? I mean, that doesn't make sense. So we take care of ourselves the best that we can, first of all, while we're here. Take care of the temple that we have, but take care of the business that comes after, because people live after that person's gone. And that's who we're taking, and that's how we share our love. Now, I had to learn that too, because this is the whole conditioning that we get, watching TV, listening to our family members. You thought that the kids weren't listening, but that's actually when they're most impressionable. They're an empty slate, and now putting all that information, they've been listening to that. They've been listening to grandma say, don't you put me in that nursing home. Don't you do that to me. Y'all not gonna put me in no nurse mode, but now, and then you have people trying to take care of someone that they don't have the capacity to take care of, right? And they're wearing themselves out, and now they don't have any quality of life either. And the person they're trying to take care of actually doesn't have quality of life either because the care may not be optimal. So that's my piece on that. I got personal and, medical part to that. I probably did pretty
No,
good
you
work.
did
for you.
And there is pediatric hospice,
Yes,
which is a whole
yes.
other, sadness, but I'm glad we're there to provide hospice for small children. And then we have support for the families.
I am. Go ahead.
I am willing to do the same. That's the conversation that you have at the dinner table. Because, you'll find a lot of times those conversations are had, but it's when mama was talking to me as one child. And then when mama was talking to another child. So now there's a mixed communication of what mama really wanted, because I remember what she told me and they remember what they told them. And I like that you said that's a conversation you have at the dinner table, because if you have that conversation between them all, then that kind of clarifies some things and that leaves out. But that's not what she told me. Being in ministry, I found that, and I have to share this a lot of time on the other end when I'm there after the death. It's time to prepare for the funeral. And there's all these emotions and all what mama said, daddy said, and I have to talk. A lot of times I talk to the family. I just had this happen last weekend, and I said, one person heard something one way, and that's not what was said. And I had to sit there and I said, well, please understand, everybody's emotional right now. And when our emotions are flying, we tend to sometimes don't hear things correctly. So don't be upset because they misunderstood you. This is a time we have to be in unity as a family. This is a time we want to honor this person's life. They lived a great life. So it reminded me of that when you said, let's have this conversation at the dinner table, because sometimes the miscommunication can start because I was on the phone with mama or dad, and then my sister or brother was on the phone at another time, and we didn't get the same
But that
message.
conversation was being had, and one of them was over there,
Yes.
cell phone doing this.
That's why you keep putting on paper.
And that's,
Yes.
yes.
When you got no paper, mom doesn't sign it.
We got a table on the lot. It's
I don't
called the
know.
5 wishes.
Yeah, that's my look.
Yeah, it's called the 5 wishes, and it's a great form. It's not an end-all form, but it's a great way to start getting sons and daughters to have that conversation. This is what I want. These are my wishes. These are my 5 wishes. I want to be cremated, or I want not to be cremated. I want this song, How Great Thou Art, sung by this lady at this time. It kind of eliminates all that dysfunctional that you get. The other day I was with a family. The daughter wanted me to go speak to her in that room. Then I had to go into the kitchen and speak to the other daughter about hospice because they didn't like each other. And isn't that sad? Mom has an irreversible condition, but the daughters could not get their act together. And that was difficult. It took 3 hours instead of maybe 35 minutes.
And I think that's the work, to devote them, that's the work. And someone asked me, Kevin Jacobs, why is this conversation necessary? Because they're not being had. And when we're going into homes and we're wondering why aren't families sustainable, we did not discuss it. As one of our presenters, and we said, Kevin, I got diagnosis I didn't expect. But then guess what comes after that? Processing that grief of that diagnosis alone. I'm not talking about the condition, I'm just the fact that I heard it. And then I'm thinking of what my future looks like. And so that's what we begin to try to help them do, the process. Don't look at the future. We got to look at this now space and let you process what that doctor said. More important, how does that fit into your life? And then if you have a spiritual context, and you have to relate spirituality to what you were told as well. God said he loved me, he said I would be healed and prosper, then why am I sick? And so then we help process those things. Because people are wondering, if God is so good, then why do I have cancer? And so that's a big question within Christianity. Because we're coming here with these suits on and these dresses on, and so nothing's wrong with us. And that's not the truth. But we're living that way. We want people to think that nothing's wrong. And so with this Family Institute, and I told Dr. Nicole, and I also talked to John knows my heart and passion as well, that's what I want to do, is to bridge these resources and communication, and to have you guys here to be with us is a big part of our transformation, I know, as a community. Now, as I try to lead today for this afternoon session, tonight we're doing something, and I don't care how many people here or not, Pastor Jeffrey Robinson is leading our service tonight. We call it Call to Prayer for Families. Last night he got on and did a little prayer on Facebook last night, but I was thinking, I said, imagine the family said, Reverend, that's me. I've been depressed. I didn't tell anybody, but I don't want to be depressed anymore. Or I can't do nothing with these children. I've tried all I could and I can't do this from now on. Right? They're out there every day, but for some reason, we can't seem to get them to say it's me. However, it doesn't need to do that, because all we have to do is show the heart of caring, compassion, and that's what I think the work is. And so tonight, I'm going to invite those of you who want, if you've got time tonight, at 7 o'clock we'll be here, and we're going to not be so formal. I've got some pastors I'm going to ask to pray. We've got a singer that's going to sing as a music with you here tonight, and I'm going to share just a brief word about them and why it's necessary, why we're going to call it prayer. Could you imagine if our families begin to get healed for real? No, you didn't imagine. Imagine if our families could get healed for real. And we were honest with each other. We came and said, I'm sorry. And then I came and told you something was wrong with me and I didn't know it. I'm going to show you this with you. When I told Dr. Nicole I had an experience with borderline diabetic. And so I asked her, how in the world could I be diabetic? So I said, my mom and dad was diabetic. So she said, most likely two of them were diabetic, and guess what? You're probably going to have a chance. Here's what I found. I called my brothers. I have 9 brothers and 1 sister. I said, listen, these people say I'm borderline diabetic. You got the same mom and dad I got. Listen, you know anything about that? Listen to this. Yeah, they told me I was borderline too. I just didn't say that. John, I was like, no. These are my brothers. I'm close to them. But I never knew. No, I'm telling y'all this family. This is going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. So listen, I want to again thank for those of you who were watching my live stream today. Again, we want to thank our panelists today, Dr. Nicole Bramwell from CFI on weight loss, and also Mr. John Mark Craven from Halifax Health Hospice. Won't you give them another hand again? I appreciate it. Can I conclude with the prayer? And again, I want to invite those of you who are watching, those of you that are here, for our call to prayer for families tonight. If you know anybody, any mom, any daughter, any son, who's in candidates can benefit them, I'm telling you, we're going to pray. I promise you, we're going to pray. And that's the whole motive, that we want to pray, to move, and to shift the minds of people, and that's what I pray today. And I want to thank you today for making this successful. I want to thank our administrator and director for the African American Family Institute, Mr. Nell August. I want to thank you so much for being who you are and what you're doing. I think God's going to bless us for the endeavor. The endeavor is what God is going to bless, because you have to be obedient. Obedient is better than sacrifice. Yes, ma'am. And that's why they take the seat, right? So listen, I thank God for you again, Pastor Harding, again to Mount Zion and to the church family. Thank God for all of you. So let us pray, and we'll be dismissed. Father God, we're grateful again for a wonderful day of information, a wonderful day of sharing and storytelling. We realize that there is power in storytelling. But most importantly, God, our focus today is to heal the family, creating sustainable families in these last days. And so, God, I pray now that you would help the African American Family Institute, help every individual in this room and their families, that we might become stronger and that we might be obedient to what your plan was for the family. Now we say thank you for this setting. Thank you for the presenters. Thank you for all who have shared in this moment. And God, we pray blessings upon them as we leave this place, but never thy presence. Now I ask that the grace of God and the sweet communion of the Holy Spirit might rest, rule, and abide with each and every one of these, my Father's children. We ask this in the most blessed name of Jesus. Amen and amen. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. And thank you for coming. governments